First of all, you are 5 minutes late. I know that we are in Greece and we start always late, but not in this institute. We start on time. Good morning. My name is Gregory Papanikos. I'm the president of this World Association of Academics and Researchers. And we call it Athens Institute, but it's a misnomer. It's not the real name. The real name is association. There is a reason why we call it an institute, and I'll explain it. Now, let me start with questions. Assume that we end the first year of Jesus Christ, we call it, the current enumeration. Can you name a European scholar that lived before Jesus Christ in Europe? European Europe. Just a name. Who? Aristides or Aristotle? Aristotle, Aristides, you are correct. Both of names are. Any from France? Any from UK? Any from Spain? Nobody, yeah? That's the problem with Europe. So it didn't exist before the current numeration. So it started to exist, some people say, the 15th century. Now, what I was asked, actually, not direct, but I review a little bit of your program so I can adapt my lecture to your needs and not to my needs. I see that you are doing public policy. I guess you concentrate on European policy mostly, because people are coming from Europe, I guess. How many of you come outside Europe? Raise your hand. Oh, I was wrong. Definitely wrong. How many of you come from Latin America? Oh, how many from Africa? What else will there? Asia. How many from Asia? Oh, it's really multicultural, that's a very good program. You exchange ideas. And do you plan to go back and implement what you learn at school? Do you get money from the government? No, so the European taxpayers pay for your fees and tuition, I guess. No? Okay. So according to your course outline, you are supposed to visit for 3 days a city, a famous city, the Athens, of course, is, I guess you consider it famous. And I have to apologize for this boring weather. Of course, boring weather, because it's the same. If it's the same, it's boring. And we never have, I'll make a lot of footnotes. We don't have agencies to predict weather in Athens, because always is what you see. But we have an agency that predicts strikes. So you go, instead of looking at the weather, you look at the strike report. So you never know what happens in the center of Athens. Now, according to your campaign, according to your course outline, you are supposed to visit the city for 3 days and then visit an organization, and it says there, I guess, government organizations, non-government organizations, and includes think tanks. Now, I try to classify ourselves where we belong. I think a good category for us is think tanks. Now, the connection between non-government organizations, of course, at the European level, is not so good because most of the non-government organizations, they are financed by government. And if we want to talk about policy, look at the migration policy or the energy policy. All these especially the migration policy, all these non-government organizations, actually they are financed by government. So they are parasites, in other words. They eat up the European taxpayers' money. Now, so I'll start with that, and of course, since we are mentioning ancient Athens, you should look at 2 guys that they wrote a lot about public policy, especially taxation policy. One is Solon, about 6th century BCE, and the other is Xenophon. Solon's public policy intervention in ancient Athens was a tax reform based upon wealth. Some people, they consider that it set the base for the development of democracy 100 years thereafter. So it's very important if you really want to do a history of European or non-European public policy, you can look at these guys, and Xenophon, which is 5th century, 4th century, he wrote a beautiful book. It's all available because we don't have solemn books, only extracts, about public revenue. It's amazing how the Europeans and public policy makers can use this. Now, what we are doing here is we are a think tank. We bring people from all over the world, and we exchange ideas, including, of course, European and non-European public policy. A big issue here that we have is, of course, democracy. And democracy, since it sets the criteria of public policy evaluation. Let me give you 4 criteria right away, and you will understand. When you try to implement or conceive a public policy at a level, I can talk about the European Union because I have more experience, but North America as well. When you evaluate a policy, you have to evaluate according to 4 criteria. At least that's my understanding of it. One is efficiency. The other one is effectiveness. So when you implement a policy, you try to see that it's the least costly one. So that's the second is effective. Effective means you get the maximum result from that. I try to define, I follow Aristotle, since you mentioned Aristotle, I follow Aristotle's philosophical approach, which says define your terms. Third, here comes democracy. The policy should be democratic, which is a big public policy. And there is a legitimacy problem in the European Union. I mean, I'm sure you dealt with that in your courses, but I'll come back to the European Union because it's not actually the United States of America. It's an international organization, and they have an executive, which is a commission. And fourth, it has to be competitive. Now, you have open all borders. Your policy should not undermine. Of course, if it's efficient, effective, democratic, you can argue that it's competitive, but it's not like that. I'll give you an example. The sanctions right now increase the competitiveness within Europe of the European industry. If you sanction something like, but that's not, this is a violation of global competitiveness when the economics come. Okay, so we are dealing with these things here, and something else that relates to your program. Technically, and according to our constitution, we don't make any consulting to private, public, or any other organization. But that's not true. We do it, but we have a sneaky way, a subtle way of doing it. We leave it to our members. So our members, that are most of them, all of them, they are professors, academics outside Greece. I'll explain to you why. So they can and they have undertake, using our association, either European projects or private projects for business, not only one, and of course for business association. Now, let me give you a few examples about Olga. 5 minutes before the 35, you interrupt me, okay? Now, I can go forever. I'm Protagoras, if you know. I talk a lot. Now, this idea of the Athens system for education and research, which is, do you have any problem with my perfect English accent? Do you understand me? That's good. That's how English will be spoken in the future. You see, this is a model. I know that you cannot imitate it, but you should try it. That's, anyway, I go slow so you can understand at least in the beginning my accent. Everything started, our idea, our conceptual idea started 2,500 years under, did you go to Parthenon, to Acropolis here? Under that hill, Parthenon. It's the monument, Acropolis is the hill, don't confuse the two, even though it's irrelevant. Now, 2,500 years, there was a guy which, I don't like him, but anyway, he was a populist. He was the worst kind of politicians. This is the reason why all the modern politicians, they admire him. They like to be like Pericles. Pericles ruled almost Athens by democracy. Every year he was elected or elected, with one exception, and then he was elected until he died from the pandemic, from the COVID, in 303. Did I create the chaos? Okay, so it started with looking at Pericles. Pericles said, at least Thucydides said that Pericles said, that our city is open to the world. We never expel a foreigner from, I guess, coming to Athens, learning and seeing. So this is our motto. Of course, you see, when a politician talks about something, he talks only about the short term, but this has a long-term validity. When he says, we never expel a foreign, if you dig into that, you will see actually he was accusing Sparta. He used exactly the same language the modern politicians use. They don't name it, but it's very clear. Of course, now you don't know that he was mentioning Sparta, because Sparta, if you were a foreigner, even a Greek, non-Spartan, you were kicked out. Yeah. And actually, that's, I cite there. So we say, okay, let's take this city open to the world and have all the academics come and debate policy or non-policy theoretical issues. Now, I mentioned before, I make a footnote again. I mentioned before that when you make a public policy decision, at least in theory, you must take into consideration that you run into a democracy. How many of you know, sorry for this type of Socratic method of lecturing, I cannot help it. It comes from my genes, since I inherited from this city. How many of you know Kenneth Arrow's impossibility theory?
Oh, Augustine.
Don't look at your professor. It's not going to help. And it's not an exam. Kenneth Arrow, a Nobel Prize student, he tried to, for welfare policy, he tried to develop the conditions under which a democratic policy can be implemented. And he came, only if you have a dictator, I mean, just I simplify, only if you have a dictator, you cannot have conflict of preferences. So you cannot have preference. Now, so in a democratic public policy, always you have a second best. Okay? So we debate this issue here because it's, as I said before, at the Athens Institute, we like to look back what it was said 2,500 years ago. Now, there are 4 criteria of democracy, and they are, when it comes to public policy, they are very important. All of them, believe it or not, they are in the Oxford Dictionary, English Dictionary. So they are, all these are English words. This one, this one, this one, this one. I know how to pronounce it in Greek, but in, I don't know if you did micro, for example, you isoquant, isocost, does it ring a bell? That's the iso here. You see this iso? And of course, this is an isocracy, equal probability to serve as an atom. That's all these 5 criteria, in theory, at least according to my opinion, determine what a democracy should be. But they have a different, I should say, degrees. For example, Isigoria is only part, I was discussing, of freedom of speech. At the Athens Institute, of course, we have freedom of speech. Everybody can come and say whatever stupidity he wants to say, based on knowledge or non-knowledge. That's freedom. But that's not a freedom of speech per se when it comes to Isigoria, because Isigoria includes the freedom to be listened. You can speak, but I have only 50 people listening to me. You can go to Agora and speak, and nobody listens to you. In ancient Athens, when they tried to implement it at the level of the ecclesia, of the General Assembly, they wanted to make sure that there were people to be listened. This is the important thing. So it's not only freedom of speech. And of course, it has nothing to do with social media, by the way. But I have it in my papers here. I solemnly meet everyone is equal before the law. I shall tell you it's tax equality, so tax system that I mentioned. I'm not going to, if you are interested, you can read a reference. Isocracy, of course, is, look at this. This is the difference between direct democracy and indirect democracy. This is the legitimacy issue at the European Union level. There are people there, like, for example, the European Commission. The European Commission is not elected, so it doesn't have the authority to implement policies. Only, of course, They are suggested by the national government. Still, there's no. But direct democracy means that these people should be elected by the European people. That's the difference. Not a representative democracy. And this is, isopolitia is another thing that is very important. Any country, like Athens, for example, they should treat the other states equal. You might have the best democracy, like the United States, that they claim that they have one of the best democracies, but they don't treat the other nations as being ISO, as being the same. Okay? And you will see they collaborate with countries that they have no democracy, for example, as long as they serve their own. Okay, I'm going to. What is our mission? Our mission is very simple. Since it's mentioned in your course outline that when you visit an organization, you should write down the mission. We have a long policy, you will see it, you can download. How many of you looked at our website before we came here? 40%. That's good, that's not bad. Now, and of course, the mission is here to revive the old glory of Athens. Okay? That's perfection, but still, we're improving. We're not perfection. We try to improve every year. So this is our mission. And of course, the two schools, Plato's Academy. Did you go to the Plato's Academy? No. Did you go to the Aristotle Lyceum? At least a place. You should go. There's nothing there, but there are no buildings, in other words. No, you should go just to get a feel. It's in downtown Athens, 25 minutes from here. Oh no, 15 minutes walk. More.
About 15, 20 maybe.
Now, these were not the only schools in Athens that existed. Someone has enumerated 40 different schools. And each school, by the way, since you are in the public policy, they have their own ideas of how public policy, if I can use this term, should be implemented. Okay? So we have specific, and that's a challenge if you write a thesis, to find one of these schools or all schools and see what do they suggest about public policy. And always, to use, since your name is Erasmus, I don't know if you read the book by Erasmus I read it in Greek, I think it's translated as idiots, stupids, something like that. It's a very comic book, and he says, if you want to impress someone, always you throw some Greek or Latin. And that was 15th century. So if you want to impress your supervisor, always you throw at least one chapter, and say this goes long way back. When I hear that for the first time, I hear, so what? I said, it goes long back. I mean, that's try to find the legitimacy in looking into the roots. Now, there are some schools you might know, cynics, which part of me is, I'm cynical, Stoics, Epicureans. I mean, this influenced Marx a lot, and Nietzsche, of course. And Sophists, that again, Protagoras is a big name here. These guys, they made philosophy a profession. So they charged money. So they were making money by delivering lectures. That's the idea. Anyway, you can find them. And we have this beautiful from Raphael, which is called the School of Athens. That's why I titled my presentation The School of Athens. You can see Plato, Aristotle, all these, there are many Diogenes here. There's a reason why. Here is Alcibiades. His feminine style is coming from the Symposium, if you read it. You see Alcibiades here. Of course, who else? I can see here Epicurus. And Zeno. And of course, the pre-Socratic philosophers. They said, for some people, unfortunately, because some people, they burned the Library of Alexandria some years ago, thousands of years ago, and 2,000 years ago. And now we don't have a lot of their material, presumably they survived, but we don't have the right. Anyway, now, what do we do? The school's activities, what we try to do is, what we are trying to do is a regular school program, regular lectures, a number of symposiums. These are the school's activities in ancient Athens, okay? And they were organized, and maximum there were 50 people that they attended. Like you here. You can be like in ancient schools, one of the ancient schools, and you can be part of them. Look, this is the most important thing. What we did, we tried to not only be inspired philosophically, conceptually by the ancient Athenian school, but we had information to see how they organized the actual symposium, the actual conference. This is from the most famous symposium that took place 416 BC, and it's the symposium by Plato. Plato wrote the proceedings of that symposium. And what we did here, there were 7 speakers, we timed it, there are more details, and the whole session came up to 90 minutes. So when we organize sessions, you see in conference, still they are 90 minutes. Of course, there were interruptions, they are unexpected. I'm not going to spend time here, but just give you an idea. Not only we were influenced by the ancient Athenian schools of thought that I present previously, but even the logistics of organizing, we follow the same. And if you want to see the setting, this is another. The symposium of Athens, of Plato, took place 416. The host was a rich guy called Agathon. There is a small street in Athens. It's under the northern cliff of Parthenon that it's called Agathon Street. We are here. It takes about 14 minutes to walk there. And I always, when I walk, it's a pedestrian street, I like to think that's where this most important symposium of ancient Athens took place. And actually there is an empty lot, and I think I say just fantasy, nothing wrong with fantasy and imagination. Phenomenology is something that you don't derive knowledge, you have to think, you have to imagine. Think about Einstein, for example. The first experiment he tried to do was a disaster. And then our professor kicked him out of the lab. All was in his mind. So use your mind. It takes only 15 minutes to go to a place that I like to consider that's where the famous symposium took place. And that's how you set up the room. You have to be management. The room in ancient Athens were set like this. Now you can see if you add another coach here, and another one, it can make up to 50 people. But that's the setting of the ancient, of the symposium of Plato. Look at this, how we set it up. Does it look similar? And see it how we look, here it's me. Okay. Now, let me give you some facts about Atiner. First of all, we're an association. We have 2,500 members. They come from 117 countries. We have 6,000 academics. All what I'm saying is on our website, those that they look. So coming from 150 countries that volunteer to help us with review. Every year we organized, we had the pleasure to host 2,000 people coming from all over the world. And by the way, I should say that we don't receive and we don't want to get money from governments. So everything, we're fee-based organization. So it's our money that we spend and not governments or taxpayers' money for this. And this has nothing to do with ideology, by the way, because it don't misinterpret. In total, more than 20,000 people have come to Athens and in various symposiums that we organize. Now, basic activities, of course, the international conference and symposium, academic dialogues, public speeches, roundtable discussions, whatever you can imagine, we have organized it. Publications, I'll talk to you about this later. Hosting courses in Athens, accredited by international universities. We are not a teaching institute, but if some universities, and we have many, some universities they want to collaborate, to offer a course, yes, we can do it more later. Research, as I mentioned, consulting, we're doing a lot actually. Our members, not us. We don't get money from that, but our members, they get money using Atiner. This is a smart way, if you want, to get rid of all the impediments of action when you get money from government. Hosting visiting research fellows, for example, if you want, you can come, and we'll provide you with an free of office space and whatever, some small administration to do your research, if it's about Athens, Greece, if it is approved, in other words. And as I mentioned, consulting public and private business organizations. We don't emphasize that, but we do it. Now, I gave you an example. For example, I give you an example about programs. We have an agreement with Georgia State University, and they come here and they do this course, education. This was 2 weeks. 2 weeks course. I think 1 week. I don't know.
With Maryland is 1 week course. With Georgia, I think about 1 week.
Yeah, 1 week. But this is part of their program. They come back. This is the University of Maryland.
They're coming in a month.
In a month. Okay. Now, let's see the publication. We're not a publishing house and we don't want to become. But in order for people to come here and get money from their universities, because they are funded by the university, we must provide them with some sort of publication. So we publish 5 things. One is abstract books, acting page, conference presentation series. I'm not going to spend time on this, but they're available on our website. And of course, we publish now 16 e-journals. It's very cheap to publish e-journals because you don't have hard copies, and one in English and one in Greek. Okay? And we think we have a very unique way of accepting papers for publication, but that will concern you at this stage at least. Now, if you like what we are doing, I should say most people do not like what we are doing, but we are not going to change the mission, especially the mission, in order to satisfy the majority of academics around the world. We don't really care, as long as we satisfy our members. So we are mission-devoted organization. We don't change that. If we change that, we can make another organization. But if you like, you can become a member. You do research in Athens, as I mentioned, organize something that's for professionals mostly, review publications, standard courses, suggest something else. Pending you have the resources, money, time to implement. This is very important because all the professors, for some reason, they think themselves that they are perfect organizers and they have perfect ideas. The problem with ideas is that 99% of the ideas cannot be implemented. It's easy to implement an idea when you have the money and the time. If you don't have the money and the time, it's very difficult. Thank you for your attention. I'm here. I have a background that is very conducive to what we are doing. And I say that so we can open up the discussion with you. I know relatively well. Nobody knows actually the European Union politics. I served for 15 years as Secretary General of the Greek Economic and Social Council. So I was wasting European taxpayers' money doing a lot of trips around Europe. So it's an exciting job that you are endeavored in. But always keep in mind that you are wasting someone else's money. This is right. Make you happy. And unfortunately, the effectiveness is not. This is a joke that we used to say that there are only 2 people that know in Brussels the common agricultural policy, and they never travel to the same place. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. According to the program, if you have any questions, suggestions. By the way, you should write a paper to suggest if you choose our organization how we can improve. Yeah. Don't say decapitate the president. I mean, you don't have to many people they suggest that. Yeah. Okay. Are there, yes.
My question, I don't think I understood this, but you said you don't, like how does the funding for this institute work? Where are you getting funding from?
I said this is a very thorny issue, because even in this building, there are non-government organizations that they are based solely on government. And what is a member-based organization? It's just the fees. You get a lot of fees from members.
But is that enough to run the entire organization?
No, actually we have more than enough. If you give money, we can give.
No.
As long as you don't waste the money, it's very easy to waste it. Okay? By coming here for 3 days, you are wasting your money because you pay yourself. If it's true what it said there. Yes.
How do you coordinate people in all these countries and this many people?
Communicate.
No. Coordinate all the researchers and the members, like there are 170.
When you need to coordinate, you know, the academics are stray cats. You cannot manage it. Each one thinks that is the best in the world. I have to use American. Yeah, it's the best way to go. We don't coordinate. Coordinate academics. It's an impossible task. If you put two academics together, it's like what they call it, the atomic theory. No, we give them the impression that they're unique. Okay? Especially the philosophers. The philosophers. I'll give you an example of that, just to put for thought. Of course, we have many presentations. Only one subject, one discipline, does not have co-authors, philosophy. In engineering, for example, or in mathematics, even mathematics at this point, you can find 1, 2, 3 people, 4 people, but they do that on purpose because they get credits, because they come to conference, so they put them in. I never organized a conference now for 20 years. We publish books on philosophy. I don't remember that 2 collaborated to write a paper. It says something. But this is an extreme example of what I'm saying. No, you can't coordinate.
You mentioned at the start of the presentation that these researchers from across the world collaborate, exchange ideas with the aim of restoring Greece to its former glory. I didn't quite get that, as in like culturally or...
No, it's a marketing tool. It's a lie, but you have to lie to keep marketing. You say, for example, actually the reason that we were established is because a lot of, we were established in North America, in Canada, and Canadian citizen as well. So when I was young and innocent, they told me, remaining innocent, and they told me that since you organize good events, why don't you do that? Their motivation, the academic motivation, was to write off expenses. Let me explain. The university, when I was teaching in Canada, for example, the university would give me, maybe they do that in Europe as well, not in England. In England, the university don't give money either. Only you get fund. But the university, instead of to avoid taxation, what they do, they give you 10,000 euros, for example, to travel around the world and present in conferences. But those people that they want to come to Athens, there was nothing here. So they can write off expenses, that's the expression. So when we were established in Canada first, so people were credible, we are doing something good, that means, or something not bad, then people can write off expenses and come to. That's their motivation. Apart from that, based upon this low motivation, you can do a good job. A lot of people, they are motivated, especially in public policy, not because of the money that they get, not because of, but for some, I don't want to mention them, but it's their very low instincts. Any other question, remark? Okay.
Yeah, you were saying that most people don't agree with what you're doing. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Okay, let me give you. See, how many? Because I like statistics a lot. I know you do 2 courses in research method. I gave you 2 statistics there. Yeah? Okay. There are, according to some database, there are 20 million academics and researchers around the world. From them, only 2,500 like us. Do we care? So we want to make it next year or 10 years 5,000. That's a lot. Do you get the numbers? This is the idea. The others they don't like us, or they ignore us, or they don't know us. But the 2,500 that they like us, they are sufficient and to run this idea. Of course, there are many that they want to change the mission. This is very important that you do that. I'm not going to go to organization theory, but there is thing about it. We have a mission that even the people that they are supposed to serve the mission, they don't know it. Do that as a test. Bring 50 representatives of organizations and ask them to write down their mission. They don't know it. But what they do, even without or knowing, they use policy to undermine the mission. And that they can do it on purpose. There was another question?
Yeah, I'm curious what the reasoning behind opening this in Canada, like an Athens or Greek-based organization. what was the interest in doing that? Do you guys still have?
So I write off expense. People can hire an organization, come here, get the money from the university, and present. It's that simple. It's called academic tourism. But apart from that, that's the motivation. Apart from that, you can do a good job. Nothing wrong with academic tourism. That's what we are doing actually. The fact that you come here 3 days and you do tourism does not prevent you from doing something good in terms of your thesis and your program, which is a very good idea that you come 3 days in different capitals of Europe. That's very important. But it's tourism as well. You have only one voucher unless
I'm just curious, how do you usually build partnerships and cooperation with other universities? Is there any specific criteria?
The Greek universities try
with other international universities?
The criterion is very simple. We have members from the universities, and if our members benefit from that collaboration, we collaborate. So it's the members' initiative, not us. And we have collaborated with many universities around the world, but it's based upon our members. For example, if you want to collaborate with your university, one of your professors, not you, that is an academic member, can suggest a sort of collaboration. But we don't need that for that's not part of our mission, even though it helps our mission. It's not part. We're not established to do that, to collaborate with various universities or getting money from them. We established to have a forum so people around the world can come and exchange ideas. You didn't ask, did you ask any question? No, good.
So having said that the mission is to exchange ideas about the latest research, did you monitor or see if the exchange of ideas were then taken as policy in any other country? So imagine multi-country people are talking and discussing, and then they went back and implemented it somewhere.
Yeah, that's a very good question, very good position, but we don't follow. It's like saying it will be a very good idea to see this can be a measure of our impact. That's what we are saying at the policy level. I'm trying to think, if I can give you an example, what I cannot to say. For example, apart from saying, with German, for example, some German professors, but this is at a we haven't examined that, about taxation, for example, that I did a study for an organization. No, but it's a good point. So you can write something to help us.
I'm sorry, I'm short, so I stand up. What would be the biggest challenge your organization is currently facing?
For us?
Yeah.
If you do a test analysis of any organization, I know if you know what a test analysis is, then political, economic, social, technological, all these 4 factors, which is at the macro environment, affects us. Pandemic, for example, the war in Ukraine, the economic crisis of Greece in 2009, we almost forget it. All this has affected our operation. And it was a big challenge, but we survived because technology, for example, we use we come out to the SWOT analysis. Okay? Then we have to analyze it. We use the technology to our advantage online, which is against, by the way, it's against our mission because there is a virtual meeting in Athens. But we had 2 choices, either to, for 2 years, close the Institute or continue with online. And then, to respond to you, now that I remember, when the pandemic struck Athens, for example, in February, March 2020, we had a lot of cancellations. When there were thousands of people were coming during the summer, May, June, July were on. When a lot of cancellations. There was a lot of animosity, anger, because our refund policy had to be implemented. It was a disaster. But then when we said right away, we posted something about COVID, still it's there on the website. We said our policy, what is our policy. We said what is our mission, and then right away we say it's online. And of course we gave free vouchers. It was a European Union decision not to refund money, but to give vouchers. And that's what we did. And that was in the first week the border closed. And then we opened up and say online. And that's the challenge that we mentioned. We found out that people come to our conference not because of Athens only, But there were people now willing to pay the 300 euro, which is a very expensive fee, I forgot to say, to participate at our conference, just to present. Said, since now you allow online, before we didn't allow online, now then I want to present at your conference, but I cannot afford to come. You see? And that's, it was in the field of hundreds, this challenge. Any other question, comment? Yes. Did you ask? Yeah. No, that's a joke. Because anybody that didn't ask, okay. You have to be democratic. We have to give the freedom of speech to everybody.
You mentioned that your journals, they have this very peculiar, particular peer review process. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, how does it work in practice? Like, it's open to the academic community, but like, how does it work?
Yeah. First of all, we have there is an issue of credibility here, which is very important. But the university has the same thing, credibility. We once collaborated with the university to offer them a scholarship for the students. This is not an our mission, but we had money, so we said, okay, we offered some scholarships, but the students, the standards that we put were higher than the university standards, the quality of the university. The unfortunate result is that no good student would apply to go to that university even with money. And it was a UK university, not bad, but anyway. So the students that if you demand something. Now, to answer your question, how it works in practice is that we have academics that they are responsible for every event that we organize. This is 100 academics, from good universities, from middle universities, from bad universities. These academics, what they do, they issue a call for papers. Standard organization of a conference. And some people, for example, from top universities, they don't come. And to tell you the truth, they are overqualified for us because we don't organize keynotes, we don't pay someone to come and speak because everybody is equal, and we cannot afford that. And that's how it is. And then if we have, let's say, 20, 25 speeches, and we organize a separate symposium. This is the reason, actually, because it's a good question. This is the reason how we develop. Because we start with one conference. What is the common denominator of all academics? What do they do? Education, teaching. They don't do pedagogy, by the way, if you know the difference between education and pedagogy, that's a different story. And they do research, education and research. So we started with a conference, third week of May, on education and research. And then this conference grew larger, more than 100 speakers. Then we say, okay, we chop it. We organize another one, and then another one, and then another one, because we have to keep the event small to remember the mission. So that's how it works in practice. So it's like they multiply by its own dynamics, if I may use that. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's how it works in practice for us. And then don't forget the motivation. The motivation is academic tour. We like people to come to Athens. They come for tourism. We know. But apart from that, we can do something good. Yes?
Could you speak a little bit about the type of consulting you do to public and private organizations?
I can talk about my own consulting, but it's not. And we use the Atiner. I mean, we are not ethical, but we are legal. It's something different. There's a huge difference. So we try to be legal. It's very difficult in place, all the European Union, but we are not ethical. So we try to find loopholes into the system so our members can make money as long as they are legal. Okay? This is very important issue. So I have done consulting for the European Union. So I serve there because this is not a full-time job. I come to the university. I serve in ECOSOC, let's say, the Greek ECOSOC. So for many years, for 15 years, as Secretary General. Apart from that, using Atiner, I have done consulting for the European Union, for the Tourist Association, for the wineries, and many. And a lot of them, they get programs from the European Union. They cannot implement it. There are deadlines. So they come to me and they come to us and they say, save us. And there are some with private companies, strategic planning, for example. But this is my money, it's not Atiner's money. But we use it as a credit line. It has to do with account. don't know if I confuse you, but it works perfectly legal. That's the idea. Yes?
You said that the organization avoided taking money from government, from taxpayers, and that the organization had nothing to do with ideology. Would you say that Atiner is a neutral organization, or what did you mean by nothing to do with ideology?
I mean, because usually when I say these ideas about the European tax money waste, they think that I'm right-wing. I'm left-wing. Because people think that wasting money, they identify with a left ideology. Okay? I'm the opposite. I think that the left should be very careful how they spend money of people's money. Like the Spanish government, for example, they waste Spanish and the Europeans. I can find a lot of that, especially the European Union. They waste a lot of money. I can give you many examples from my experience, but I'll say, even only to see the traveling that they are doing, I mean, it's small amount, but it says something. I'll tell you an example for that. When I was appointed in 1996 Secretary General, I went to Brussels for the first time. You know this meeting, I don't know if you simulate a meeting at the European Union level. Then every representative has, including, you are from Spain, from Portugal, from Latin America. Yeah, it's the same, the language I can't. You are teasing me. I mean, you understand why I always ask this question. I mean, so where are you from? Argentina. So, you see what I mean? Of course you are Argentina, but the language is I can't from your accent. You know, everybody knows that I'm either Turkish or Greek. So let me give you an example. If you go to the European Union and we have 27 different countries, we have I don't know how many languages, even Turkish is an official language because Cyprus is bilingual. Now, I have the right to ask for an interpreter. So I can speak in Greek, and when I say that's a waste of money, I said, well, I speak in English. And so you don't need a Greek interpreter. Then the interpreters union came to me, including the Greek one, saying, what are you doing? You know? Trying to save some of the European tax money because I don't need it to speak in Greek. No, but what are you going to do with our job? If you don't, so I was forced to speak in Greek, of course I didn't. I was forced to speak in Greek. The same with, that's why I said Spanish, or the Portuguese, even though they speak perfect English, international language, or any. You can use 3-4 languages, English, French, German. We agree that most people in Europe, they speak these languages. And instead of having all this, the Belgians, I think they have 2 languages. And then, that's a waste of money, that's what I mean. It's a waste of money. You can use it if you want for social welfare, for welfare purposes. And not going to this people. And apart from other things, when I organize meetings from the European Union here, if you come the interpreters, they're dictators. They say, if it's a square, just a square meter lower, they have guidelines for everything. Every 45 minutes they have to stop. I mean, it's amazing. The Byzantinism of the European Union. I'm against them. And of course I'm in favor of the European Union. This has nothing to do with one or the other. Any other question, comment?
Okay then, thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. And this is